Hi everyone, my name is Memo and this is my channel Houseplanty Goodness. Welcome. This is a place where I like to geek out about all things to do with tropical houseplants. You might not be able to see any houseplants in front of me, but you will see what we're going to be talking about in a minute. But as a new YouTube content creator, I do find it really useful. If you like content like this, drop a like down below. It tells me if you want to see more of these types of content and I'll create a bit more. And if you generally like knowing a bit more and finding some tips and tricks and what I find works in my environment with my tropical houseplants, do subscribe down below. I attempt to bring out a video every week about 2 or 3 times. So let's dive into it, shall we? So as I mentioned, normally I would have a plant in front of me, but this time around you are seeing a whole bunch of different types of fertilizers that I have tried over the years, and I want to talk to you a bit more about my experiences with each one of these different fertilizers. So from the very side here, you might be able to see here if I bring it in a bit closer, this is worm castings. I've then got the Folio spray from Liquid Gold Leaf, Superthrive, the standard Baby Bio that most people will be aware of in the UK as a houseplant fertilizer, the Orchid fertilizer by Baby Bio, the Liquid Gold Leaf fertilizer that a lot of people are raving about. You get the slow release fertilizer from Miracle Grow, and then these two are both a micronutrient and a grow fertilizer for semi-hydroponics. But let's start from the worm castings. So the worm castings, I'll bring it in a bit closer, you might be able to see it just looks a bit like soil. This is in essence worm poop, and this can work quite nicely as a soil amendment. This is also one of the ingredients that I use within my aroid chunky soil mix. There is a video on my channel, so if you want to see what I use to create my aroid mix, do go and check it out on my channel. But overall, it's probably one of the most organic things that I use in terms of fertilizing my plants. So far, so good. It's a nice, gentle fertilizer. And as I said, essentially it's worm poop, so it does have some good nutrients within it. The other thing I will mention about that, it can be really, really expensive. For say a 500 gram or a kilo bag from Amazon, it's very, very expensive. Probably more expensive by weight than most of these other products here, so just bear that in mind, but still quite good if you want to add something in there that will slowly release some nutrients to the plants. The other thing on here, you might see that it doesn't have a label. I don't think they've got labels yet, but this is a brand new release. I've been waiting for this for nearly a year now to be able to test this out. This is a Folio spray by the same guys that do the Liquid Gold Leaf. And this, my understanding is that it really helps with variegated plants, so that you spray this, I think it's 2 ml for a litre of water. You'd spray it every 2 weeks over your plants. Make sure that you're covering the entirety of the leaf, especially for variegated plants. And it essentially what it does is it helps those plants photosynthesize a bit more effectively, which would mean faster growth even on variegated plants, which can be quite slow growers. A lot of people that were testing this during a trial run that they were running had really good reviews about this, so I'm really, really excited to see what this will bring. As I mentioned, I haven't been using this for too long, but I will keep you posted on how this goes. If you want to know a bit more about how I'm finding my experience with this, drop me a comment down below. Let's have that conversation. The other thing as well that a lot of people might be aware of, especially in the States, I think this is quite large in the States, is Superthrive. And this is, again, a bit more of an amendment to the soil. So it's being touted, at least in the UK, as a vitamin solution, and it includes kelp. The kelp that's in it is probably, out of all the fertilizers, has got the strongest fishy smell. So just bear that in mind. But I use this mainly for what it's intended, essentially for transplant shock. So if you're moving plants maybe that you've been water propagating into soil, I will water with this for the first few times, and it will help ease that plant into that new media, which is the soil. And then also a few drops of this in the water, if you're water propagating, can help plants grow roots a bit faster. At least that's what it says. I don't think I've ever found it. And also the other problem that I have with this, if I'm adding it into water where I'm water propagating, after a day or 2 it really does smell like rotting fish. So bear that in mind. But I know a lot of people swear by this. I've had good experiences, but not one that I use every day essentially. I'll come back and finish off with Liquid Gold Leaf because I know some people might want to know a bit more about this. The next one is Baby Bio, the black standard Baby Bio. which most people in the UK are aware of. You can get this in most gardens, and you can get this in most supermarkets, to be fair. A few drops of this in your water before you're watering. This is a chemical fertilizer, so it's not an organic fertilizer as far as I'm aware. And this is another one that has a bit of a scent after a while when it's been open. If you haven't used it for a long period of time, it does slightly smell acidic. I don't think it necessarily means that the product is off, but there's a very strong chemical smell to this sometimes. But a really good, cheap, easy alternative if you've got a few plants and you don't want to be spending a lot of money on fancy fertilizers. This is a good one to go with. The other one that I cannot live without, especially when it comes to all of my orchids, is the Baby Bio orchid food. This is fantastic. It also has got the right types of nutrients to enable flowering in plants. So if you've got plants, I'm thinking of maybe my Stephanotis or anything like a jasmine or a Hoya that's just about to bloom, fertilizing with this in the run-up, so when you start seeing the blooms, will really help stabilize some more of those blooms stay on the plant, and more likely that those blooms will open up faster and last for a bit longer as well. But yeah, this is great. I use this with all of my orchids. I water them once a week. I put this straight into the substrate, and then fill up the cache pot with the orchid in its orchid pot within the cache pot. So that's usually about 1 litre. So I've never really had any problems. I know it's not necessarily the recommended way of doing it, but considering that most of my orchids are pretty much flowering more or less year round, and they have been for the last 4 years, I think I'm doing something right. And I'm using this with all my orchids, not just the standard orchids, the Phalaenopsis orchids that you would get from most places, but I'm also trying this on some of my rarer orchids, and I will add the name of some of them down below just so you can see what I've tested it on, and they're all reacting really well to this. Then we've got the slow release bog standard Miracle Grow fertilizer. You can see little pellets, and this will go into soil mixes. So I'll either use this or this when I'm making a soil mix. This will usually last about 6 months, and then you do need to maybe add some on the top part of the soil, or if you're repotting, then just refresh with the new soil essentially. But it's worked really well for me, and you can still fertilize with the rest of your fertilizers as you would normally. This is just making sure that the plant, if there's ever a point that the liquid fertilizers have been used up and they're looking for fertilizer, they can still get some of it from the pot itself. I've not had any chemical burns from or mineral burning from too much of the fertilizer being in the soil. Then the other two, I'm going to be completely honest, I bought them when I was starting on my leca journey, and I have to say I've abandoned my leca journey for a while now. I've got a lovely follower on Instagram who swears by PON, so I might try PON in the future just to see how it works. But this is a whole subject within itself, so definitely do your research if you're getting into semi-hydro or things like leca. You would add a micronutrient fertilizer, and then you add a grow fertilizer into the water. You need to be very careful on how you add in the fertilizers and in what order and in what quantity, because the smallest bit of an issue there could mean that you get nutrient lockout. And I'm not an expert in this, but the way that I understood it is, if it's a nutrient lockout, there's a chemical reaction when you add these ingredients in the wrong quantities or in the wrong order, where it means that those nutrients are no longer available to the plants that you're trying to fertilize, which kind of defeats the purpose. So this is definitely cool. I definitely got a bit of my chemistry geek on when I was doing this, and they did work quite well. I never had any problems with this. I'm keeping these around. If I go and try PON, I might try these again. But also with these, because they're such weak fertilizers, you could theoretically add them into some water and fertilize as you would normally with most of your plants that are in soil or in different media that isn't semi-hydro. And finishing off with probably the king of everything, and I know a lot of people talk about this and everybody gushes, there is a good reason for it. Liquid gold leaf is by far the best in my opinion. I think this has pretty much replaced most of my other fertilizers at this point. I use this exclusively. You can also use it, I'm looking at the bottle, you can use it as a Folio spray, you can use it in semi-hydro, so it almost replaces these two, and you don't have to do anything. You have to worry about it getting chemical nutrient lockout. And I think it also slightly dechlorinates most tap water. So really, really, really excellent stuff. I could do a whole video on this. If you want to know a bit more about liquid gold leaf, do let me know. I think at the moment it's only available in the UK. I do think that they might ship to the US and to Europe. I'm not 100% sure. But amazing stuff. Anybody who's tried it over here does know that this really works like a charm. But they sell out quite quickly on their website because it's so popular. So bear in mind, if you do find one, grab one before they're all gone. That's a bit more about the fertilizers that I use. If you've got any questions, comments, drop them down below. Let's have that conversation. And yeah, in the meantime, I hope you have a good rest of the day. And hopefully I shall see you here soon. Thanks. Bye.